Hi friends, it's Kristi, and in this video we're going to talk about choice overload. Hey friends, it's Kristi. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. What is choice overload? You experience it every single day, but what's so funny is that we say I want choices. I demand choices. It's my freedom, it's my right. I want choices. Choices bring me happiness. But did you know that it is proven that choice overload could actually have negative consequences? And that's what I want to talk about here. So I'm going to talk about the 5 negative consequences when it comes to choice overload, and then give a couple of recommendations on how to avoid that overwhelm. Because the greater the amount of choices, there's actually a larger distance between our choice and what makes us happy in making that choice for that thing. So let's dive in. First negative consequence is a deferral or postponement of even making a decision. So let's say I am shopping for a car. So there's this very base model, there's these 2 or 3 kind of mid-level models, and then there's this tricked out supermodel. What do I choose? I don't know. So I may just postpone making a decision at all because I'm overwhelmed with the selection, the amount of choices in which I have to make. Number 2 is sometimes we go with a conservative choice rather than something a little bit higher up because we're kind of afraid about those extra add-ons or those extra additions in that choice. So sometimes we tend to go with a conservative choice. And if you are a business owner or you're selling something, you don't necessarily want your buyers to go with that conservative choice. But sometimes that's the easy default because, again, overwhelmed with so much to choose from. Number 3 negative consequence is sometimes we go with the status quo, right? Well, this is just what everybody else is doing, so perhaps I'll do that as well. Or we tend to go with a recommendation or just our default. I know using the example of going to Cheesecake Factory, after I've read through the 87 pages or however many pages in that book of a menu, I usually tend to do one of 2 things. I will order the thing that I had last time if I enjoyed it. I've had this salad before, it was good, I'll go ahead. So it's just my default of what I've ordered before, or I'll ask the server for a recommendation. So nothing wrong with recommendations, but sometimes when somebody makes a recommendation, it might be different than what we actually really wanted, but we couldn't find what we wanted because there were too many options. And then number 4 is relying on peer choices. So what I mean by that is instead of making our own decision based on what would make me happy, I tend to go to my friends and ask, well, what would you do? What would you choose? And there's a warning in there for you in this example, because what can happen is if we're asking our peers to help us with a really large decision and we're on overwhelm because of choice overload, if we follow the advice or the recommendation or the suggestion of our friend, and it tends to, if it winds up being something that didn't bring us happiness and it wouldn't have been the choice that we would have made, we can actually kind of blame that person for helping make that recommendation or that choice rather than taking ownership. But if you follow somebody else's suggestion, then even if it doesn't work out, it was still your choice to follow their recommendation. So still, please take ownership in that. I know sometimes I'll say, well, that's what he told me to do, or that's what she said I should do. Well, you made the choice to follow their recommendation. So just, again, I'm talking about the negative consequences with choice overload. And then number 5 is called brand defection. So what does that mean? Let's say we're going to a corner store. I need to go and pick up toothpaste. So let's say I walk in and I look at this whole long aisle of toothpaste, right? I've got lots of choices and I'm like, oh, what do I choose? So sometimes there's a brand that has a whole bunch of different options, right? Like it's the whitening and it's the mouthwash and it's the paste and it's the gel and all these different choices. Or this one over here is just this one thing, right? This brand that has this one thing. Sometimes we go towards that one that has that one thing because we're like, well, gosh, if that's their specialty, that's their only one thing, they must be really, really good at it. So sometimes we tend to go with the one option, even though it may not be the best. And again, that's why there's negative consequences from choice overload. So let's talk about some of the things that we can put into place to help us to not be overwhelmed and help us make the best decision when it comes to choices. So number one, we need to streamline our choices. So let's say you're walking into Best Buy and you're going to choose a TV. If you see 40 TVs up on the wall, you really need to just focus on the couple that really truly are your actual options. So maybe it's a price point that you're looking up to, a size, a style or a design. So really try to streamline it and reduce it to as many options as possible. And then I want you to organize those options. So in the study I was paying attention to, which brought to me this information to share with you today, he was using an example of a stereo system. So you've got all of these stereo systems in which to choose from, but if you don't organize by what's important to you, you might wind up going home with the thing that you thought was most important. And in the example of a stereo, you want this particular sound, right? But what if it was really ugly? And you didn't really pay attention to that until you got it home and away from all of the other stereos. And then you get home and you're like, oh God, it looks terrible sitting in my living room. So organize what's important to you, all the way down to the aesthetics of it as well. And then the next one is we need to do an attribute-based decision making. So what does that mean? We're looking for specific attributes that really fit the bill. So when I'm making a large choice, I want to have at least 3 things that I want to make sure that it absolutely hits these 3 things, and those are non-negotiables. And then I can really focus on, okay, if they've got these other bells and whistles too, that's great, and I'm probably going to be paying for it, right? So if it's got this like extra little package, that's okay that it's there, and I might be all right paying a little extra for it, but I want to make sure it's got these things for sure. And so I got to make sure that my mind doesn't get taken off of those couple of things that I need to make sure that what I'm shopping for hits all of those levels, and then the other things can come in as just kind of icing on the cake. And then the last thing I want to share with you is if you truly are at choice overload and you don't know what to do, seek advice from an expert. This is not your peers, okay? So let me use an example. Let's say you're facing some kind of therapy or surgery. Talk to your doctor about that. There's nothing wrong with speaking to family and friends, but seek the advice and the guidance of an expert in that subject matter. I think that's really important. I know when somebody's shopping for a car, a lot of times they'll go to Car and Driver magazine and they'll read reviews and they'll study and they'll look at all of those attributes that we were talking about earlier. But they'll also read the suggestions and the information and those reviews made by experts. So they're in there because they are experts in their field and they know how and where to compare these different attributes when they're making their reviews. So thank you for watching this video. I hope it helps you if you are facing overwhelm when it comes to choices. Be aware of these negative consequences that can show up, and then just take into account those suggestions to help you make the choice that fits what you need to make happen. Until next time, my friends, stay well.